All right, let's talk about one of the biggest challenges in project management. You've got all these moving parts, a huge team, a tight budget. How do you possibly keep it all from flying off the rails? Well, today we are diving deep into the one process that acts as the nerve center, the absolute command center for your entire project.
I mean, think about it. It's the question that haunts every project manager, right? You kick things off with a rock-solid plan, you've got a fantastic team, everyone's excited. So what happens? Where does the drift come from? Well, more often than not, it's because there's no single source of truth, no real-time integrated oversight.
Exactly. You wouldn't try to run a major international airport without a control tower, would you? It'd be absolute chaos. Planes everywhere, no one knows who's landing or taking off. That's a project without a robust monitoring and controlling process. You're literally flying blind. This process is your project's control tower.
So how do we build and run this thing? Here's our flight plan. First, we'll define what this control tower really is. Then, we'll get into its core mission: tracking, reviewing, and reporting. We'll look at how it gathers intelligence, and then we'll deep dive into the PM's toolkit. After that, we'll see how all this analysis drives real action, and finally, we'll tie it all together in what I call the continuous control loop.
Okay, Section 1. Before we go any further, let's get on the same page about what this process actually is. Let's look at the official, by-the-book definition from the people who literally wrote the book on project management.
And there you have it, straight from the PMBOK guide. Now, the three words that should really jump out at you here are tracking, reviewing, and reporting. This tells you it's not a passive sit back and watch kind of thing. It's a constant, active process of checking where you are against where you're supposed to be, your project plan, to make sure you're actually going to land at your destination.
So, with that definition locked in, let's talk about the mission. What's the point? Why do we pour so much energy into this? What are the real, tangible benefits of having this control tower up and running?
At its core, it all comes down to two things: clarity and foresight. This isn't about generating paperwork, it's about building trust. When your stakeholders can see a clear, honest picture of the project, good, bad, and ugly, and more importantly, see the plan to fix the problems, their confidence goes through the roof. It shows them you're in control. And maybe the most powerful benefit is that it lets us look into the future with forecasts, shifting us from constantly fighting fires to actually steering the project proactively.
And this is what it actually looks like in the trenches. Day to day, the project manager is constantly comparing what's really happening against the plan. They're assessing any gaps to see if we need to take action, they're keeping a close watch on risks, and critically, they're making sure that when a change is approved, it actually gets done right. This isn't a check-in once a month. This is the continuous heartbeat of the project.
You know, any control tower is only as good as the information it's getting. Without radar, weather data, and communication from the pilots, it's useless. For a project, we call this gathering project intelligence. So let's look at the critical data feeds that our control tower depends on to do its job.
Of course, everything starts with the project management plan. That's our official flight plan. But the real-time stuff is what makes it dynamic. Think of your issue log and your risk register. They're like reports from scouts on the ground telling the tower about immediate roadblocks or turbulence up ahead. But the most critical feed, without a doubt, is work performance information. This is the live, raw data coming straight from the team doing the work.
Okay, this is a really important distinction that every great PM understands. We start with raw work performance data. These are just the facts. We spent $10,000. Task A finished on Tuesday. We found 5 defects. Then, that raw data gets analyzed and put into context, transforming it into work performance information. Now it has meaning. We are 10% over budget. We are forecasting a 2-week delay. See the difference? We turn raw numbers into intelligence you can actually act on.
So, how do you get that powerful intelligence into the right hands? Through work performance reports. These are your dashboards, your weekly status reports, your progress memos. This is how the control tower communicates the situation to everyone else, making sure the executives, the stakeholders, and the team are all on the same page.
Okay, so we've got all this great intelligence streaming into our control tower. What does the project manager, our air traffic controller, actually do with it? Well, they don't just stare at it. They use a very specific set of tools and techniques to analyze it and make sense of it all.
At a high level, the process is actually pretty straightforward. First, you gather the intelligence we just talked about. Second, you analyze it to find out where you're off track. And third, based on that analysis, you decide what you're going to do about it. Simple, right? But that middle step, the analysis, That's where the magic happens. So let's open up the toolkit.
This is where a PM really proves their worth. Let's walk through these. First, you've got variance analysis. Super simple. Plan versus actual. We plan to be here, but we're actually here. The gap between them, that's the variance. Next is trend analysis. Is that variance a one-time thing, or is it part of a pattern? Is our performance getting better over time or worse? It gives you direction. Then comes the powerhouse, earned value analysis. This one is huge. It brilliantly combines scope, schedule, and cost into one picture. It answers the crucial question: are we getting the value we expected for the money and time we've spent? It's the ultimate project health check. Now, once these tools flag a problem, you use root cause analysis to play detective and find the why. We're over budget, but why? Because a key supplier hiked their prices. That's the root cause. Once you know the why, you can use alternatives analysis to brainstorm solutions. What are our options to fix this? And finally, you pull out cost-benefit analysis to pick the best option. Which path gives us the most bang for our buck? This whole toolkit is how you move from just looking at data to making really smart strategic decisions.
And remember, the tools are amazing, but they don't give you the answers. They give you the information. You still need the human element. Data doesn't make decisions. People do. That's where expert judgment and collaborative decision-making in meetings come in. The data informs the conversation. It doesn't replace it.
Okay, analysis is critical, but it's totally useless if it doesn't lead to action. The job of the control tower isn't just to watch the radar. It's to give clear commands that keep planes safe and on schedule. These commands, these are the outputs of our process.
Now, we've already talked about the work performance reports that keep everybody in the loop, but the most powerful, most active output here is the change request. This is the formal way you make a course correction. It's the mechanism that prevents that chaotic, uncontrolled scope creep and turns it into a deliberate, reviewed, and approved course adjustment. This is what separates controlled adaptation from just chaos.
And not all change requests are the same. Let me give you an analogy. Corrective action is like putting out a fire that's already burning. We're over budget right now, so we need to take action right now to fix it. Preventive action is like installing a smoke detector. Our trend analysis shows that if things keep going like this, we're going to miss our deadline in 2 months, so we're acting now to prevent a future problem. And finally, defect repair is like rebuilding the part of the house that burned down. A feature was built wrong, it doesn't work, we need to formally approve the work to go back and fix it. And this brings us to the most important concept of all. You have to understand that this process isn't a phase you go through. It's not something you do once and then check off the list. It is a continuous, non-stop loop that runs for the entire life of the project. It's the engine that drives everything.
And here's where you see how beautifully it all connects. Our process, monitor and control project work, uses that toolkit to identify a problem and generate a change request. That request then feeds into a different process for formal approval. Once it gets the green light, it becomes an approved change request. That then gets sent over to the team to actually implement the change. And the result of that change, it creates new performance data, which feeds right back into the top of our loop, and the whole cycle starts over again.
This right here, this is the fundamental difference between watching your dashboard and actually steering the car. This feedback loop is what makes a project a living thing, constantly adapting to reality while staying laser-focused on its final destination. It's what turns passive monitoring into active steering.
So, I'll leave you with that one question to think about for your own projects. Are you just a passive observer, just watching the numbers on a dashboard? Or are you truly in the control tower, actively using that intelligence to track, to review, to report, and most importantly, to steer? Because the answer to that question is what will decide if your project lands safely on time and on budget, or becomes just another statistic. Thanks for joining me.